Well, thank you very much, Jim. Thanks everybody for coming out. It's great to be back. We did a lot of work with Ripon back in my former life when I was a staffer back in the 90s, and I'm still in that process of figuring out what is in fact the same as it was in Congress and DC back then, what is in fact different from what it was back then, and what appears to be the same but is in fact different, and what appears to be different but is in fact the same, and I don't have it all sorted out yet, so y'all maybe can help me out with that a little bit this evening and going forward. I had Jim kindly said, I did a long run in state government after I left the Hill a long time ago, and actually thought I was done in public service. I ran for governor, got the nomination, lost to the incumbent, and went out and got a job that actually pays well. My wife reminds me, which my current one I think is fine, but she reminds me it is perhaps less generous than private sector law practice in an Am Law 100 firm was. And so, here we are, you never know what to expect. But I did that long run in state service. I've got a buddy who was he was a career federal prosecutor actually back in Kansas, who is now serving in state government. And we've known each other a long time. He spent most of the time we've known each other complaining about how states were bad partners in all kinds of things, and the federal government was superior. I, of course, was just the opposite. And now we have 100% changed roles in that. So where you sit depends on where you stand. And I say that to make this point. I'm still in the phase, and I hope I never lose this, where I think of most policy issues, especially in the Judiciary Committee, from a state perspective. It's just how my brain works after all of those years. And I think, we all bring our own experience, and that's helpful when the system actually works and you can exchange ideas and talk about things and hopefully shape policy based on that. It's really healthy when we all come from a different perspective and we can kind of blend that together. And so, maybe just a couple of thoughts on either judiciary matters or more generally, and then I'll turn it over to my colleagues, and then we can, get to the real stuff, which is an actual, hopefully, back and forth conversation here. And if it's a hard question, ask them, and if it's easy, ask me. But we're here at a special time, and I think I at least remind myself of that with some frequency. It is not very often that there is a trifecta, there is one party control of all three branches. I believe it's the case. Somebody told me this. I haven't gone back and independently verified it, but I believe it is generally true, even if the number might or might not be exactly correct. There have only been, this is the 8th year since the Second World War, there's been a Republican trifecta. And I think that's probably true, because Democrats controlled the House until '94, almost. I think there were a couple of years in the Eisenhower administration that I'm especially fond of. And then we had a couple of years in the Reagan administration, and then we had Trump 1, and now here we are. And so I think about that a lot. Not that everything is partisan, it's not, but on the other hand, there are tools that you can use when you have partisan control that as a practical matter simply are not available to you when you don't have it. Whether it should be or not is a different discussion for the academics, but the reality is things like reconciliation, for example, are simply not, as a practical matter, available if you don't have tripartite control. And so I bear that in mind as stuff I maybe came here to do, or little ideas we have, or things I'd like to advance, or things that back home people are saying, why aren't you doing that yet? Everything probably needs to take a back seat until we give reconciliation its shot. I believe we'll get it passed, and then we can move along to other things. But if we don't do that, then we will have abandoned functionally or risked undercutting the use in a very narrowly divided pair of bodies, a rarely available tool to a Republican majority. And so I bear that in mind all the time. And as we're looking at reconciliation pieces, we all have our own constituencies we represent. I said to a member of our leadership the other day, and I said it with great affection and love, and in all fairness, I said it on the floor, and I said it in front of a member of the New York delegations. I just want to say this is not no secrets here, but I did point out that our friends in New York have been very effective in driving pieces of the conversation, but it is, shared sacrifice is very important if we're all going to get some of these difficult things done, and the rest of us do have opinions on some of these issues. We just perhaps don't express them as loudly or with as many hardly drawn lines. And so I say all of that just to make this point. The moment is special. We will either look back on this 2-year period or maybe 4-year period, or who knows, but we will look back on this period and we will say one of several things. We'll either say we were there in a moment America made great progress on big, difficult issues that were kicked down the road for a very long time and not addressed. We may not have gotten them perfectly, but we did something that could not be done by several generations before us. I hope that's what we're able to say. Or we will say we tried to do that, but we didn't succeed, which would be less desirable, but better than the third option, which is we gave up somewhere along the way and failed to try to capitalize on the moment, not for ourselves, but for the folks that we represent. I think that's where we are at this sort of big moment in time. And so that's why I talk in this more sort of general reconciliation focused term as opposed to talking about a lot of stuff I'm really interested in on the Judiciary Committee. There's a reason I choose, for my part at least, to allow a lot of those other issues to take a back seat for now. They'll have their moment, but the moment is not just quite yet. So here we are. I'll turn it over to Brad. He can talk more profoundly on this stuff, and then we'll go where we want to go. Thank you, buddy.
Well, thank you, Derek. I agree. Can everybody hear me?
Oh, yeah.
I agree that we are in a special moment in this time. As Jim, as you aptly introduced, I'm a lifelong North Carolinian. I, believe it or not, really didn't have much of a desire to ever run for Congress until a few, I would say maybe just maybe a year and a half ago when I left my dream job. My dream job was a federal prosecutor, and it was one of those jobs where I really did not earn right out of the chute the progression that I was able to achieve. When I was first commissioned and appointed as a federal prosecutor, I came in at the tail end of the Obama presidency. And then when Trump won unexpectedly, there were so many exits from the department, there was a lot of vacuum. And so I just kind of went up somewhat unexpectedly, but to a pretty high level in the organized crime division, and very quickly was able to just go full bore into a wide variety of different types of criminal activity that most people just never have exposure to. I certainly did not, from where I came from, where I grew up, what I saw as a young man. And that progression really shaped the foundation that I am hoping to launch from in Congress. I agree with Derek that there are several big important items that we have to address. We were just referencing some of those at our table. But from my job, what I saw as something that must be tackled quickly is, it's not a recent problem, it's really a problem that's been cultivated my entire life, and that is the open border. And again, I will stipulate that my world as a organized crime prosecutor is a little bit dated insofar as that's all I saw. All day, every day was horrible, graphic, grotesque crime that was in large part promulgated and certainly made worse by illegal immigration. And I saw the effects that generational roots have with illegal immigrants and how they capitalize on this country, how they rob this country, and more sympathetically, the loss of human capital that comes from it. You cannot separate the two, the open borders and over 125,000 on average the last 4 or 5 years, Americans who die from drugs, hundreds of thousands who are crippled by addiction, the property crimes that are inflicted on this country, the education systems that are overwhelmed by this country, the hospital systems that are overwhelmed by this country, and then the people who come here strictly to enrich themselves and send money out of this country while being here illegally. And I see that as a real threat to the country. And to say it over and over, I'm not against legal immigration. That's not one of the threats that I saw. But I did see, again, a very dark world insofar as the illegal immigration problem that we face. And there's been very little appetite to address it in a comprehensive, all-encompassing way. I certainly have ideas as to how to do that. That's one of the reasons why I came to Congress. The second reason I came to Congress is the entrenchment of the administrative state. Again, as a federal prosecutor, I was very familiar with how the Department of Justice works, how it can absolutely destroy somebody with just a blink of an eye. And you have small business owners, you have infrastructure projects, you have states, you have municipalities. Increasingly so, their costs are being levied for compliance with the administrative state. We had a hearing in the Judiciary Committee last week where I think there was something like several 100,000 rules that have been promulgated without congressional approval that carry criminal penalties. And that's just frightening to me. That's absolutely frightening, and it restricts the freedom that you and I have. It restricts the freedom that we take for granted. And it's something that we've got to flip quickly if we're going to continue to innovate, to grow, to move, and to operate as Americans typically have. And then thirdly, the reason why I came to Congress is we had a great discussion at our table about this, is the deficit and the debt. You know, taking $2 trillion away from my children every year as a federal government is something that is just flatly untenable. And reconciliation is taking up all the oxygen, no question about it. Candidly, and off the record, I will say I'm a little bit surprised that 1.5 trillion over 10 years is a target that caused so much consternation, because if we're all being honest, it's going to take a lot more of that type of mechanism and that type of creative thinking to get out of a $37 trillion debt. And if we don't get that fixed, there will be some event in the future, to what Derek alluded to, where we will look back and say, I wish we had tried harder. I wish we had had a more creative approach. I wish we had been more serious with the problem that was no surprise to anybody. And that's why I'm here. Those are my three passion issues. Again, very unique. I was in the hallway with law enforcement more than I was with other attorneys over the last 10 years, and talked to a lot of wonderful people, and then talked to a lot of really wretched people who were committing crimes here. And that, paired with my family dynamic, is kind of what propelled me to run for office, and I'm blessed to be here. It's my privilege to hand the microphone over to Mr. Baumgartner, but before he takes the mic, let me say that we came here together, and I read his remarks, and they are hilarious. They are charming. They are the type of remarks that will launch a stratospheric rise in the political realm. And so it is with eager anticipation that I give the microphone to Michael Baumgartner.
Let me start by saying, Jim and all of you, thank you for having us. You know, we get invited to a lot of things when you're a new member of Congress, a lot of dinners, but as my chief of staff, Jenny Gorski, said, she said the Ripon Society is special. And Jim, every time I see you, I think about the respect that you have for this institution here in Congress, the people in this room, and what it means to our republic, and I just really appreciate being invited and being a part of that. And what two great fellow members of Congress to be with here today. And I think Derek shows what somebody that is extremely talented, that gets a chance to make an impact on public society, can do, and the inspiration that brings. And Brad shows how American democracy can even be available to the most modest intellectuals. So it's the land of opportunity. So it's good to be here. Yeah, what an exciting time. We really do have a great freshman class. It really is a great freshman class. What a special time to come in with the tripartite situation that we have here. My only regret is that, well, I am blessed to have had the experience of being with state overseas in Iraq, and then being in our state legislature, and even working in local government, county treasurer. I wish I was a little more seasoned, had a little more experience on the ground for this moment in time, because there's a lot of big things going on, and some of it, quite frankly, as a freshman, you're kind of watching and wish you had a little bit bigger impact on. But you know, it is a team sport. It's fun to be part of the team. You know, my background, and so it was a surprise for me to get on judiciary, but I really appreciate it, just so, because as the focus of the conversation, I don't have a law degree, haven't made a lot of laws. But actually, Jim Jordan called after my primary to kind of check in and say he was going to send me a check, kind of how the big leadership type guys kind of do. And I said, well, Jim, when I got you on the phone, it's one of the things I like to try to do in Congress. It might seem a little crazy, is I'm really concerned about the future of college sports and what's going on for small schools like Washington State, Oregon State, and I'm worried about a second NFL. And Jim was interested because he was a college wrestler and is worried about the opportunities for middle sports. And so I thought kind of he was just shining me on. Then he called back, and then we talked about it again, and then his chief of staff said, hey, why don't you try to get on judiciary, because there's this antitrust piece. With that being said, I really enjoy being on the committee, because while I wish Chairman Jordan rolled votes and voted by button, particularly when you're 9 hours deep and listen to Jamie Raskin on a reconciliation markup, it doesn't really feel like this issue of immigration is one of the key reasons what we campaigned on, why you're here today, and this issue. And then also it's been fascinating to see how much the administration looks to House Judiciary Republicans as a backstop for what they're doing. You know, Stephen Miller sought us out for a strategy discussion. The very first dinner that Pam Bondi had with her team was with us down at DOJ, and it was interesting to see that aspect of it. And of course, a lot of that isn't because I'm on the committee, but because of just the relationship they have with Jim Jordan and what they see. So it is a special time to be there. I am very much, my background overseas, I've been in 96 countries, spent a lot of time overseas. I think I like the tribes up here, thinking about what groups, that this is a study of human nature. And then, as it was alluded to in my introduction, I have this background in asymmetric strategy. And so, like when we did the big tuition reduction, so it's not often Republicans get to hold things in Washington State. We had the majority in the state Senate for 6 to 8 years I was there. And one of the things I argued was we were under court order on this, our teachers union had bought off all our judges and had a court order going on. But I said, look, we can't beat the Democrats in the K-12 spending war. We should go fight on another hill. And that's why we did that tuition reduction strategy. Reagan said color in bright, bold lines. And so I think about what are the asymmetric opportunities here that we can look for in this fascinating multi-part conversation going on with the White House and the other folks.